Hello, hello, welcome back to another look through of the Fright Flicks cards from the 1980s put out by TOPPS put out by TOPPS in the US market and O-PEE-CHEE in the Canadian market. So I'll be taking a look at the O-PEE-CHEE TOPPS trading card set. My previous videos chronicled the first 50 cards, so we're going to look at cards 51 to 75 here. What Fright Flicks was a celebration of the horror movies of the 1980s, another golden era of horror films. TOPPS had previously put out horror subject cards for funny monsters and creature features before, and they were basically images from Universal Monster Pictures with funny captions. It's the same thing here. Images from 1980s horror movies that were popular at the time with funny captions, and on the back some sort of strange did it ever happen urban legends, which are all made up but like very interesting to read. These are two of the wax packs they had put out. One features an image from Fright Flicks, one features an image from, of course, Predator. They also had a Pumpkinhead wax pack and a Freddy Krueger one. Of course, Freddy Krueger, you're going to see him featured prominently in these cards because he was very, very, very popular at the time. So without further ado, let's go through trading cards 51 to 75. I'll be looking at the fronts and backs and reading out the urban legend on the back. All right, so this is card 51. This is from Day of the Dead. This is the as I said in previous videos, I hadn't known they had released Day of the Dead until I saw them featured in these cards. The makeup in Day of the Dead was great, and it really sold me on tracking down the video and renting it. I ended up renting it for a sleepover party I had from one of my birthdays. So is this line for the ballet tickets? That's the caption for this. What's the copyright here? It's copyright Dead Films Inc. 1986. And did it ever happen? Ted Wilson decided to visit his cousin in Sancret, Montana during February 1938. When he arrived, he swears he found everything moving backward. Cars, animals, even people. An hour later, things returned to normal, but no one believed him. Dun dun dun. Did it ever happen? And here is this from one of the Freddy's. When you said you'd have me for dinner, I thought you meant Nightmare on Elm Street 3. Did it ever happen? The red giant with angry green eyes began running towards Forest Ranger Edward Price in Yosemite National one spring day in 1960. Price shouted a warning, then fired. As the bullets hit the creature, the giant vanished. Dun dun dun, did it ever happen? And of course, as I said in previous videos, these are the same kinds of urban legends that live on in various ways on TikTok and YouTube and several other things, the old creepypastas, stuff like that, right? I am tired, dead tired. Some Nightmare on Elm Street 1. While swimming underwater in the Caribbean on December 20th, 1956, Don Henderson swears he was attacked by a band of blue-skinned mermen with spears. Henderson was taken to an undersea city hidden in a cave. A week later, he managed to escape his captors and swim to the surface. And I'll point out the asterisk here, names fictional, see disclaimer on wrapper. So there you go. Nancy comes sit next to Daddy. That's from American Werewolf in London. Did it ever happen? Everything seemed normal when the owners of Shelby's Wax Museum opened the doors on January 7th, 1950, except the night watchman. Willie was nowhere to be seen. When they entered the museum, their blood froze. Old Willie lay dead while the statues were bent over him. That's a good pitch for a movie. That's cool. When I said, "Hand me that screwdriver," that's from Fright Night. Fright Night had a lot of cool makeups in it. Did it ever happen? Matt Winters felt dizzy on the night of June 8th, 1934. Everything was going around in circles, so he parked his car and dozed off. Awakening the next day, he was surprised to find his car had somehow moved from Topeka, Kansas to Denver, Colorado. Dun dun dun! 1934. That's cool. Billy, Susie. Okay, I give up. Who is it? That's from The Fly. On June 8th, 1950, Sheriff Clark Kane went to investigate how Ann Phillips would raise and sell so many hogs without owning a farm. He was never seen again, but at the market the next day, one of Ann's pigs had a badge-like mark on his chest. He's turning them into pigs like Circe. Mom, you forgot to pay the paper boy. That's funny. That's the queen from Aliens. Teenage boys grow rapidly, but when Harry Gray began growing an inch a day starting April 1st, 1957, his parents became worried. Doctors failed to halt his growth. More than a month later, the growing stopped, leaving Harry a giant of over 8 feet. Dun! I should have passed on that last egg cream. Yeah, for a long time I didn't like Poltergeist 2, but I don't know why I didn't like it. I mean, there's cool weird stuff like this, like Craig D. Nelson throwing up the main villain man. I think I just didn't like the fact that they demystified the Poltergeist itself to just be a horror icon character, which no one remembers today, but you know. Did it ever happen? The full moon shone as Dan Tarsdale walked along the San Francisco docks in 1852. Suddenly, something Harry grabbed him. His arm was clawed, but Dan managed to toss the thing into the water. There was a gurgling sound, then silence. Madman or werewolf? Dun dun dun. My arm is fairly hairy too, so I don't. It could have just been a dude. The label said not to open before Christmas. From Aliens. Did it ever happen? Citizens of Canyon City, Colorado, watched in horror one night in 1924 as their mayor was drawn helplessly skyward by a blue beam of light. 3 hours later, the light returned, lowering a dazed but otherwise healthy mayor. So everything's fine then. This is a great shot of the Marshmallow Man. Oh, rose me a Boy Scout. That's funny. So it's Ghostbusters, and as I said before in another video, these cards represent, I think, some of the only, if not the only, card images of the original Ghostbusters. I don't think they released a Ghostbusters trading card set. They did for Part 2, but I don't think they did for Part 1. I could be mistaken. Private Hart pulled his ripcord, but his parachute failed to open. Then he saw a yellow beam of light coming toward him from below. Falling into the beam, he rapidly descended. His rapid descent was halted, and he floated gently to Earth. Well, good for him. Didn't happen, though. So. Ooh, I'm really shot. another shot of another card featuring Freddy Krueger from Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3. A lot of these are Part 3. Did it ever happen? Insane thought the people of Houseman, Texas. The stranger wore 19th century clothing and mumbled something about help for a wagon train. He purchased medicine at a drugstore and left the town. A young boy who followed swore that the man faded away as he walked over a hill. Yeah, he was a ghost. Like, this is from Aliens. Charlene, something inside me is yearning to be released. Did it ever happen? The crasher at the costume party on March 15th, 1949 was so perfect in his Roman toga and his speaking Latin that Teddy Roberts let him stay. Later, Ted gave him a bed to sleep in. The next morning, all Ted could find was a pile of torn, faded rags in the bed. Just because he's a real dude from, like, ancient Rome or whatever. Can you spare a dime for a bite? Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3. And most of these are publicity shots rather than stills from the movie. Did it ever happen? He hasn't returned in 3 days from a night in the Mason Street haunted house. Rick Benny's friends told Miami police on October 3rd, 1964. Police found a body identified from fingerprints as Benny, but Benny was 24 and the body was that of a 90-year-old man. Dun dun dun. That reminds me of some Tales from the Crypt stories from the comics. It takes a lot of guts to do this. Oh, that's cool. That's a cool shot of Bishop. From Aliens, did it ever happen? The tapping noise in the Smith home began shortly after they bought the old house on April 5th, 1959. It became so annoying that Mr. Smith reluctantly broke the wall down from where the sound was coming. Out fell a skeleton, its hand in a fist. Yeah, trying to get out, man. Here's Pumpkinhead, a great shot of Pumpkinhead too. Yeah, well, Pumpkinhead was a great creation. It was designed to show off, like, all the technical wizardry of the time. Cheese. So, as I said in previous videos, Pumpkinhead was originally called Vengeance of the Demon, and we saw a card in the previous video that said Pumpkinhead, so it really confused me as a kid. I was like, are there two Pumpkinhead movies and one's called Vengeance of the Demon? Like, there's no internet to look all this stuff up, right? Did it ever happen? The men grabbed Roy Edwards and dragged him into the Belmont Hotel along Tenor Avenue on the night of November 2nd, 1956. Edwards saw the men wore 19th century clothing. Later, he and police were unable to find the hotel. Research revealed that the hotel had burned down in 1892. Dun dun dun. Alright, bring back the lighter for a refund. Yeah, this guy survives Part 3. Only to die in Part 4. Did it ever happen? Pierre Chambord could not understand a man dying for a woman's love, but could understand dying for love of a good book. On April 6, 1841, while dusting a volume, he struck it against his arm, causing a wound that soon killed him. Okay, well, he's just being stupid. That's cool. There's a lot of great monster makeup effects in Day of the Dead. Okay, dudes, let's take it from the top. It looks like a Ludwig type of, composer or something. One morning in June 1953, Margaret Moyat, an artist, had a vivid dream about an elderly man. Oh, that's a spelling mistake. Who had never seen before. who she had never seen before, I guess. She decided to paint his picture. Neighbors commented that it looked like a former local minister, a minister dead 25 years. Well, someone needed to really edit the heck out of this one. They really missed their mark on that one. But why can't I join the boys' choir? That's Fright Night. Fright Night had some good cinematography, like nice colors. Regular radio programming was interrupted in the town of Grotto, Kansas on March 17, 1949. A strange alien dialect was heard on every radio station. Investigators were unable to translate it or find where the signals came from. It's probably signals from like India or something. What do they know in like 1949, right? I don't remember this guy in Day of the Dead, but anyway. What big teeth you have, Grandma? I don't know if you could hear my dog snoring. He's like right beside me. Anyhow, did it ever happen? Things had always been normal at the home of Mr. and Mrs. Ted Schinner in Paris, Texas. But in the fall of 1961, strange events began to occur. Furniture, books, and utensils began sailing across the house, often with great violence. Happens all the time on TikTok. All the time. Just go on TikTok, there's stuff flying around all over the place. But leave the sideburns. That's kind of funny. Did it ever happen? That's from Alien. Did it ever happen? Separated from his safari in the summer of 1958, Bill Brunman came face to face with a lion. This way quickly, said the thin voice from above. Bill ran to a nearby high tree. He looked for his benefactor, but there stood only a small monkey. Dun dun dun. A talking monkey saved him. That's the dude who gets his head ripped off his body from Day of the Dead. Stay for coffee? On June 1st, 1946, Jack Davis checked into City Hospital. At first, doctors could find nothing wrong, but within a week, it was apparent that Davis was shrinking 3 inches a day. By the end of June, Davis was too small to be found. Dun dun dun. That's cool. It's more human-like Pumpkinhead. That's a great shot. I've had it with those miracle diets. Vengeance the Demon, the other name for Pumpkinhead. Did it ever happen? The bizarre dream haunted the artist Brad Kalhammer for 3 nights in June of 1903. A small metal box continually shouted and laughed at Brad. The troubled painter sprung from his bed and painted his vision. In 1977, the British Museum unearthed Kalhammer's 1903 painting of a transistor radio. That's cool. That's a cool little story. It's cool how they fit in all these details and paint a picture in like a sentence or two in like these small little card backs. I said I'd give blood, but this is ridiculous. His veins are coming out. In a kid's card set, by the way. That's from Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3. Did it ever happen? Waiter Harris was a magician. Working with his pretty assistant Abby, Harris's top act was having the girl vanish from a huge trunk. But the police didn't believe Harris's tale that the girl had really disappeared in the trunk on August 15th, 1952. Harris was arrested despite his cries of innocence. Dun! That's a good premise for a movie too, if they want to do that. I'll call you later, something just came up. Yeah, it's from Alien 1. Did it ever happen? When their plane disappeared in Egypt on July 24th, 1925, a search was started for pilots W.T. Day and D.R. Stewart. The plane was found in the desert intact with gas in the tanks. In the sand were boot marks for 50 yards. Then the tracks just ended. Dun. And this will be the last one for this round. And for my next shadow picture, it's another publicity still for one of the Freddy Kruegers. Yeah, Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2. Did it ever happen? On July 3rd, 1657, Colonel Jonathan Buck had a Bucksport woman condemned as a witch. She cursed him, saying his tombstone would bear the imprint of her foot. When Buck died, the gravestone was blank, but as the weeks passed, the imprint of a foot grew plainer. How's that a curse? Like, he just has a foot on his stone? Or, yeah, I guess. And that's it for trading cards 51 to 75 of Fright Flicks from the 1980s. I hope you had fun looking through these with me. Until next time, take care.